For 12 years, they pretended I didn't exist. My children, my grandchildren, all of them cut me out of the family as if I were nothing. I spent birthdays, Christmases, and even hospital stays alone while they celebrated together without me. And then one day, I finally found my strength. I bought a mansion, bigger and grander than anything they had ever dreamed of. And that's when they showed up on my doorstep, smiling like we had never skipped a beat. They thought they could waltz back into my life. They thought they could claim what I had built. But they didn't know what I had waiting for them inside. My name is Judith Monroe, and I am 78 years old. For 12 long years, I lived with a wound deeper than any knife could cut. It wasn't sickness that caused it, nor poverty, nor strangers. No, it was my own family. I wasn't always alone. For decades, I had been the glue that held them together. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday cakes baked from scratch, all of it happened under my roof. My husband, Arthur, and I raised our children with love, discipline, and endless patience. When he passed 15 years ago, I thought at least the family would grow closer. Instead, it broke. It started small. Invitations that never came. Photos of birthdays I wasn't told about. Calls that went unanswered. Then came the final blow. One Christmas, I showed up with gifts wrapped in silver paper, only to find the house already full of laughter and light. Everyone gathered without me. My daughter Patricia opened the door and froze. "Oh, Mom, we didn't think you'd want to come," she said, her voice tight. Behind her, I saw my grandchildren tearing open presents, none with my name on the tags. That night, I walked home in the snow, carrying my unopened gifts. And I never heard from them again. 12 years. 12 years of silence, exclusion, and abandonment. I sent letters that were never answered. I left voicemails no one returned. Birthdays and weddings passed without me. Neighbors began whispering, "Why doesn't her family visit?" I smiled through it, but inside I was broken. Then last year, something happened that changed everything. I won a settlement. A long-forgotten lawsuit Arthur had filed over a business deal finally came through, and when the dust settled, the check in my hands read, $6.8 million. For days, I just stared at it numb. All those years of loneliness, of eating dinner in silence, of crying myself to sleep, and now, here was money that could change everything. And then I thought, why not? I sold the small creaking house where Arthur and I had lived, where every corner echoed with absence. I hired movers, designers, and contractors. Within months, I had purchased a mansion, a sprawling estate on the edge of town with marble floors, sweeping staircases, chandeliers that glimmered like stars, and gardens that stretched farther than my old house lot. For the first time in years, I felt alive. I decorated it exactly how I wanted: velvet drapes, antique furniture, a library filled with every book I had longed to read. The kitchen gleamed with marble counters, and outside, the pool sparkled under the sun. And yet, even in my joy, part of me thought, they will find out. And of course they did. One warm afternoon, I was pruning roses in the front garden when I saw a line of cars pull into my drive. Sleek SUVs, polished sedans. My heart thudded as doors opened and faces I hadn't seen in 12 years stepped out. Patricia, my daughter, stepped forward first. Her hair was styled perfectly, her pearl necklace gleaming. Behind her came my son Robert, in an expensive blazer, his wife trailing behind with a forced smile. And then, the grandchildren. Taller, older, but still recognizable. They approached me with wide smiles, their voices falsely sweet. "Mom!" Patricia exclaimed, as though nothing had happened. "Look at this place. We just had to come see you. Isn't it wonderful?" I stood frozen, pruning shears in hand, the scent of roses thick in the air. My chest ached with 1,000 unspoken words. For 12 years, they hadn't called. For 12 years, I had been dead to them. And now here they were, standing on my marble steps, their eyes darting past me toward the mansion, drinking in the wealth, the luxury, the possibility. Robert clapped my shoulder. "You've really done well for yourself, Mom. This is incredible. We should all celebrate, don't you think?" The grandchildren shuffled awkwardly, offering hugs that felt staged. Patricia kissed my cheek and whispered, "We've missed you so much." But I knew. I saw the hunger in their eyes. This wasn't love. This wasn't reconciliation. It was calculation. They weren't here for me. They were here for what I had. I forced a smile, my mind whirling. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shove them off my property. But another part, the deeper, wiser part, stayed calm. If they thought they could waltz back into my life and claim my mansion, my fortune, my peace, they had another thing coming. I led them inside, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Their gasps filled the air as they wandered from room to room, admiring chandeliers, velvet chairs, oil paintings I had chosen myself. "This will be perfect for family gatherings," Patricia said with a gleam in her eyes. "We've missed having a place big enough for everyone." Everyone. For 12 years, I hadn't been everyone. I had been no one. But I nodded calmly, keeping my smile in place. "Yes. It will be perfect." That night, after they left with promises of coming back soon, I sat alone in the grand dining hall, staring at the flickering candlelight. My heart was heavy, but my mind was clear. They thought they had walked into my home. But really, they had walked straight into my trap. Because what they didn't know was that this mansion held more than chandeliers and marble. It held something I had prepared, something waiting quietly, something that would make sure they never dared betray me again. The house felt different after they left. I walked through each room in silence, their voices still echoing against the walls. Patricia's polished tone, Robert's rehearsed compliments, the grandchildren's stiff hugs, all of it clung to the air like a sour perfume. I sat in the library, surrounded by shelves of books I had filled myself, and let the memories press down on me. 12 years. 12 years of empty holidays and unanswered calls. And now suddenly, they had rediscovered their love for me, right after I built a mansion. I should have thrown them out on sight. But instead, I let them in. I smiled, I poured them tea, I let them wander through the house as though they belonged here. Why? Because patience is sharper than rage. And I wanted them to show me just how far their greed could stretch. It didn't take long. Within a week, Patricia called. Her voice dripped with sweetness that made my teeth ache. "Mom, we should plan a family dinner at your place. It's been too long since we've all been together under one roof." I nearly laughed. Under one roof? They hadn't wanted my roof for over a decade. But I said yes. The following Saturday, they arrived again, this time with casseroles and wine, all smiles and warm greetings. They hugged me as if the past 12 years had been a small misunderstanding, nothing more. But I watched. I watched Patricia eyeing the grand dining room, running her hand across the polished table as if testing it for herself. I watched Robert stroll through the study, pausing too long at the cabinets where I kept important files. And I watched the grandchildren, strangers to me now, snapping photos on their phones, sending them off with quick smirks. At dinner, Patricia raised her glass. "To family," she declared. "We've wasted too much time apart, but now we're back together, just as it should be." I clinked my glass gently, smiling. To family. But inside, my thoughts were cold. Together? Or only together when there's marble underfoot and gold in the bank? They ate heartily, complimented every dish I'd prepared, and then, as I suspected, began dropping hints. Robert leaned back in his chair, sighing. "Mom, you must get lonely here, all by yourself in this big house. It's too much for one person. Don't you think?" Patricia jumped in. "He's right. You need us. We could help you. The kids could stay here sometimes. We could make this the family hub." "The family hub," I repeated softly, tasting the words. I saw the way their eyes flicked around the chandelier-lit room, the velvet curtains, the gleaming silverware. They weren't picturing family dinners. They were picturing ownership. After dessert, Patricia slipped into the kitchen with me while the others laughed in the living room. She lowered her voice. "Mom, you know we could take care of you. If you sign the property into all our names, it would save hassle later. We're only thinking of the future." There it was. Barely a week back in my life, and already, the claws were out. I dried my hands slowly on a towel, forcing my voice calm. "The future," I said. "Yes, that matters." She smiled, thinking I was agreeing. But in that moment, the shape of my revenge sharpened. Because this house wasn't just bricks and marble. It was mine, built from the ashes of their betrayal. And if they thought they could take it, I would use this very house to destroy their greed. That night, after they left with hugs and promises of coming back soon, I sat at my desk and opened the leather-bound notebook where I'd begun to draft ideas. Step 1 had already worked: lure them back in. Their greed had brought them straight to my doorstep. Step 2, feed their hunger. Let them think they were winning. Let them believe the house was slowly becoming theirs. The higher they climbed, the harder the fall. Step 3, the reveal. But not yet. No, revenge is best when it simmers. Over the next month, I played the part of the welcoming mother. I hosted Sunday lunches, smiled at their forced laughter, let them wander the house freely. Each time, I noted their behavior. Robert began showing up alone, offering to help with bills or repairs. One afternoon, I caught him in the office rifling through a drawer, his face flushing when he realized I was watching. "Just checking the locks, Mom," he stammered. I said nothing, only smiled. Patricia, meanwhile, grew bolder. She dropped phrases like, "when we all live here," or, "this is going to be perfect for Christmas." She even brought swatches of fabric one day, laying them across my couch as though she were planning redecorations. And the grandchildren? They lounged by the pool, treating it like a vacation home. One of them even joked, "Grandma, you're like the rich aunt in the movies. Except now you're our ticket to the good life." They laughed, not realizing every word they said was carving their own downfall. I stayed calm, patient, smiling while I gathered proof. And while they schemed, I set my own traps. I installed new security cameras, hidden in corners they wouldn't notice. I kept detailed notes of every suggestion they made, every slip of the tongue that revealed their true intentions. And most importantly, I called my attorney and updated my will. Helen, my closest friend, came over one afternoon as I drafted the final version. "Judith," she said softly, "are you sure about this? It's harsh." I looked up at her, my pen steady. "They left me alone for 12 years, Helen. When Arthur died, when I was sick, when I had nothing, they vanished. And now that I have this? Now they return with smiles and open hands. They're not family. They're predators. And predators need to be caged." She nodded slowly, her lips tight. "Then cage them good." By the time the next family dinner rolled around, I was ready. I prepared roast beef, potatoes, and pie, the kind of meal they used to beg me for when they were children. As they ate, Patricia leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Mom, we've been thinking. We should all move in. It makes sense. This house is too big for you, and we can take care of you better if we're here." Robert added quickly, "And financially, it's smarter if everything is under one family name. Saves on taxes. We just need your signature." They said it so casually, as though I should be grateful. I set my fork down, folded my hands, and smiled. "You might be right. Maybe it's time to put things in writing." The room fell silent, their eyes widening, hope sparking like fire. They believed me. They thought the old fool was finally giving in. But what they didn't know was that the ink on my new will was already dry. And the moment I revealed its contents would be the moment their entire game crumbled. For weeks, I let them believe they were winning. Every Sunday, they came through my front doors with their polished shoes, loud laughter, and arms full of store-bought desserts they pretended were special family recipes. They strutted through my halls like they belonged here, their voices echoing under the chandeliers, their eyes darting over the marble floors and gilded frames. They thought my silence meant surrender. But my silence was the sound of patience. One afternoon, Patricia arrived early, carrying a notebook. "Mom," she said brightly, sliding into a chair at the kitchen island, "I've been sketching some ideas. You know, for when we all live here together." She opened the notebook and began flipping pages, sketches of redecorated rooms, furniture layouts, even plans for renovating the master suite. "My suite." I smiled faintly, hiding my rage. "How thoughtful of you," I murmured. She mistook my calm for approval. "And Robert's been looking into property taxes. He thinks if we transfer the deed to a family trust, it'll make everything easier. For you, of course. We just want to take the burden off." Burden. That was their word for me. Later that week, I caught Robert in the study again. He jumped when I appeared in the doorway, shoving a folder back into the drawer. "Mom," he exclaimed, his voice too quick, too defensive. "I was just checking for insurance policies. You know, making sure everything's up to date." I said nothing. I only looked at him, long enough for him to squirm, then turned away. But the cameras saw everything. Every drawer opened, every file thumbed through, every whisper he thought was hidden. The grandchildren were no better. They treated the mansion like a resort. They lounged by the pool, posted photos on social media with captions like #mansionlife and #familygoals. One even joked to a friend on the phone, "Yeah, Grandma's basically our golden ticket now." They thought I didn't hear. But I heard. I heard every word. And I recorded it. I began compiling everything into a neat little folder I kept hidden in my bedroom safe. Camera footage of Robert snooping, audio of Patricia talking about future renovations, screenshots of the grandchildren's careless posts. Each page was a brick in the wall I was building around them. Still, I played my role. At dinner one night, I told them, "You're right. This house does feel too big for one person. Maybe I should put some things in writing." Their faces lit up like children on Christmas morning. Patricia reached for my hand, squeezing it as if we were close. "Mom, that's wonderful. You won't regret this." But as her manicured fingers pressed against mine, I thought of all the years my phone never rang, of the holidays I spent staring at an empty chair across the table, of the hospital room where I lay alone with no visitors. Oh, I would regret nothing. That week, I called my attorney again. "Mr. Landry," I said, "everything is ready on my end. The will is updated, the protections are in place. Now, I just need a stage." He chuckled softly. "A stage?" "Yes," I said firmly. "If they want a performance, I'll give them one. But I'll be the one writing the script." The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Patricia suggested a family reunion dinner at the mansion. "We'll invite the cousins, the in-laws, everyone," she said, her eyes gleaming. "It'll be a beautiful way to show that we're all back together again." Show. That was the key word. It wasn't about family. It was about spectacle. About parading themselves around my home, claiming it in front of witnesses. I agreed instantly. "That sounds perfect," I said, my voice smooth as silk. She beamed, oblivious to the trap snapping shut around her. In the days leading up to the reunion, I prepared carefully. I worked with Mr. Landry to arrange for a notary and an assistant to attend quietly. I ordered extra security cameras installed, just in case. And I placed copies of all my evidence into a locked folder labeled, "For the family reunion." The day arrived. The mansion filled with people I hadn't seen in years, cousins, nieces, neighbors, all marveling at the house. Patricia swept through the rooms like a hostess, smiling broadly, her voice loud as she told guests, "Mom wanted us all together again. Isn't it wonderful to be reunited in this home?" This home. Not her home. This home. Robert played bartender, pouring drinks with exaggerated charm, while his wife boasted about how the kids are practically living here now. The grandchildren snapped selfies on the grand staircase, laughing, carefree. I moved among them quietly, smiling politely, saying little. They thought I was the frail widow letting her children take over. They thought they were already inside the gates. But the truth was, they were already locked inside the cage I had built. Near the end of the evening, Patricia clinked her glass for attention. "Everyone, I just want to thank you for coming tonight. We've been apart too long, but now we're back where we belong, together in our family home." Applause rippled through the crowd. My jaw tightened, but I kept my composure. Then she turned to me. "Mom, why don't you say something? You've been so quiet." I stepped forward slowly, pearl earrings glinting in the chandelier light. All eyes turned toward me. "Yes," I said softly, "I should say something." The room quieted. I let the silence stretch, let them lean forward, eager for the words they thought would seal their victory. Finally, I smiled. "I've been patient. I've listened. I've watched. And tonight, I think it's time you all hear the truth." Patricia's smile froze. Robert's glass paused midair. The grandchildren stopped laughing. Because they could see it in my eyes, something was coming. Something they wouldn't forget. The room went still after my words. I could feel the weight of every gaze pressing on me, waiting, expecting. Patricia's eyes darted nervously, her smile plastered too tightly on her face. Robert shifted in his chair, gripping his glass like a lifeline. Even the grandchildren, who had been snapping selfies only moments before, suddenly looked uneasy. Yes, I said again, letting my voice grow firmer. It is time for the truth. I walked slowly to the head of the table, my heels clicking against the polished floor, and placed both hands on the back of my chair. The chandeliers glimmered above me, casting golden light that made the pearl earrings at my ears shimmer. For 12 years, I began, I have sat alone. Alone on holidays. Alone on birthdays. Alone when I was sick. For 12 years, I wasn't invited, I wasn't called, I wasn't wanted. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Patricia's face hardened. Mom, that's not fair. Not fair. I snapped, my voice sharp. Do you remember the Christmas I stood at your door, arms full of gifts, only to find the house full of laughter and joy without me? Do you remember telling me, we didn't think you'd want to come? 12 years passed after that, Patricia. 12 years of silence. And now here you are, smiling in my house as if those years never happened. Patricia's cheeks flushed crimson. She tried to laugh, tried to dismiss it. We've all made mistakes, Mom. But we're here now, aren't we? That's what matters. I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. You're here now because I built something you want. Marble floors, velvet curtains, chandeliers. This isn't family to you. This is a prize. Robert finally spoke, his voice defensive. You're being too harsh. We just want to take care of you. You're old, Mom. You shouldn't have to handle all this alone. The word old stung, but I smiled. Old, yes. But not blind. And not stupid. The room tensed. Guests who had no part in the feud shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flicking between me and my children. I raised my hand, and from the side of the room, Mr. Landry, my attorney, stepped forward. He carried a slim folder and a quiet authority that made even Patricia sit straighter. This, I said, taking the folder from him, is my updated will. Signed, sealed, and notarized. Gasps filled the air. Patricia's eyes widened. You updated your will? Yes, I said calmly. Because I knew you would come back. I knew greed would pull you to my doorstep sooner or later. And I was ready. Robert leaned forward, panic creeping into his voice. Mom, you don't understand. We're just trying to. But I cut him off. Understand? I understand perfectly. I understand that when I had nothing, you abandoned me. I understand that when I was lonely, you left me in silence. And I understand that now when I have this mansion, you've returned with smiles and open arms. That is what I understand. Patricia's mask cracked. Her voice rose, sharp and trembling. So what, Mom? You're going to cut us out? After everything we've done for you? I laughed bitterly. Everything you've done? What exactly have you done for me, Patricia? Besides vanishing for 12 years? Besides leaving me to bury Arthur alone? Besides watching me grow old in silence? The room was silent except for the sound of Patricia's labored breathing. I turned to the guests. They want you to believe this is a happy reunion. But the truth is simpler, this is greed disguised as love. I nodded to Mr. Landry, who pressed a button on the remote he carried. Suddenly, the projector screen at the end of the dining hall flickered to life. Images appeared, screenshots from my security cameras. Robert rifling through my desk drawers. Patricia laying swatches of fabric across my couch. A grandchild lounging by the pool, laughing into their phone. Grandma's our golden ticket. Gasps filled the room again. People turned in their chairs, whispering in shock. Patricia stood abruptly, her hands shaking. You had cameras? Yes, I said coldly. I had cameras. Because I knew what you were after. Robert's face drained of color. This isn't fair. We didn't mean. You meant every word, every action, I said sharply. And I recorded it all. The grandchildren shrank in their seats, their bravado gone. Patricia, however, grew louder, her desperation spilling out. You can't do this. You can't just erase us like this. We're your family. I leaned forward, my eyes burning into hers. Family doesn't abandon you for 12 years. Family doesn't laugh while you cry at Christmas. Family doesn't return only when there's money to take. You stopped being my family a long time ago. The room was buzzing now, neighbors and cousins staring in disbelief at the spectacle unfolding. Some nodded in agreement with me, others shook their heads at Patricia and Robert's shame. I straightened, holding the folder high. This will, this document, leaves nothing to Patricia, nothing to Robert, nothing to the grandchildren who treated me like a joke. Every cent, every brick of this house, goes elsewhere. To charities, to shelters, to people who understand loyalty. Patricia gasped, her face twisting in rage. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I said quietly. And I already have. Robert slammed his hand on the table, his voice cracking. This is revenge, Mom. You're going to regret this. I shook my head. No, Robert. I regretted giving you 12 years of my silence, thinking maybe one day you'd come back out of love. That regret is over. Now, it's your turn to live with regret. Patricia's eyes darted wildly around the room, searching for support. But all she found were stares of pity and disgust. I turned to the guests, my voice steady. You all came here tonight to see a family reunion. Instead, you've witnessed the truth. This isn't a reunion. This is justice. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some clapped softly, others shook their heads at Patricia and Robert's audacity. My children sat frozen, their faces pale, their plans crumbling before them. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because there was still one final piece of my trap, one thing they didn't know, one truth that would break them completely. And I would reveal it when the time was right. The dining room was electric with tension. Patricia's face was pale, her lips trembling with fury. Robert sat frozen, his jaw clenched, while the grandchildren squirmed in silence, their earlier arrogance gone. Around us, cousins, in-laws, and neighbors whispered furiously, their eyes darting between me and the family who had abandoned me. But I wasn't finished. I let the silence stretch, watching them squirm under the chandelier's golden light. Then I drew in a deep breath, my wrinkled hands resting firmly on the folder in front of me. There's one more thing, I said, my voice steady. One more truth you all deserve to know. Patricia sneered, trying to recover her composure. What more could you possibly have, Mom? You've embarrassed us enough tonight. I turned my gaze on her, calm and unwavering. Embarrassment is a light punishment compared to 12 years of abandonment. I nodded to Mr. Landry. He opened another envelope and handed it to me. Slowly, deliberately, I unfolded the papers and held them up for all to see. This, I said, is the deed to this mansion. But it isn't just a deed. It's also a contract. A contract that was signed before I even bought this property. Gasps rippled through the room. Patricia frowned. What are you talking about? I smiled faintly. 12 years ago, when you shut the door in my face, I made a promise to myself. If you ever came back, it would not be because of love. It would be because of greed. And if that day ever came, I would be ready. I pointed to the contract. So when I bought this house, I put it in a protective trust. That trust contains a clause, a very specific one. If my children or their spouses attempt to claim ownership, residency, or financial control of this house, they are legally barred from ever inheriting a single cent from me. The room erupted in murmurs. Some people clapped softly in approval, others shook their heads in disbelief. Patricia's mouth fell open. You set us up? No, I said calmly. You set yourselves up. I simply prepared for the day when greed would expose you. Robert stood, his face red. This is madness. You're turning the whole family against us. You'll regret this, Mom. I rose slowly, meeting his eyes. No, Robert. For 12 years, I lived with regret. I regretted raising children who could abandon their mother. I regretted believing that time would heal what you so casually broke. But tonight, I have no regrets. Patricia's mask shattered completely. She slammed her hand on the table. You can't do this. We're your blood. I stepped closer, my voice cold as stone. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And you showed me exactly what I mean to you when you shut me out of your lives. The grandchildren shrank under the weight of my words. One muttered, Grandma, we didn't mean. But I cut them off. You laughed about me being your golden ticket. You thought I didn't hear, but I did. And I recorded it. Mr. Landry clicked the projector again, and the audio file played, a grandchild's voice loud and clear, "Grandma's basically our golden ticket now." The whole gasped again, the final nail in their coffin. Patricia buried her face in her hands. Robert muttered something under his breath, his voice broken. The grandchildren avoided every gaze, shame creeping into their young faces. I turned to the guests, raising my chin. "You all witnessed tonight what 12 years of silence has created." They thought wealth would erase betrayal. But I refused to be erased again. The crowd burst into quiet applause. Some people even stood, clapping firmly, their eyes fixed on me with admiration. For once, I wasn't just the old widow who had been abandoned. I was the woman who had survived betrayal and turned it into power. Patricia rose abruptly, her chair screeching against the marble floor. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You can't just cut us out of your life like this." I met her glare evenly. "It was over 12 years ago, Patricia. You just didn't know it yet." She stormed out, her heels clattering against the floor. Robert followed, his shoulders slumped, his face pale. The grandchildren trailed behind, silent, their bravado shattered. When the doors closed behind them, the air felt lighter. Guests murmured their approval, some even hugging me before leaving. "You did the right thing," one whispered. "You showed them what family really means." Later, when the mansion was quiet again, I walked through the empty dining hall. The remnants of the feast still lay on the table, empty glasses, crumbs of pie, a wine glass tipped over, its contents staining the white cloth. I stood there for a long moment, letting the silence wash over me. Then I walked to the library, lit only by the glow of the fireplace. I sat in my armchair, the pearl earrings Arthur had given me glinting softly, and allowed myself a long exhale. For 12 years, I had been invisible, forgotten, cast aside. But tonight, I reminded them who I was. I reminded them that I was not weak, not a fool, not a golden ticket to be cashed. I was Judith Monroe. And I had turned their hunger into their humiliation. The mansion was quiet, but inside me, a fire burned steady and strong. They thought they had walked into my home. But really, they had walked into my trap. And just like I promised myself all those years ago, I ended it on my terms. Forever.